I think from insecurity in my mom and her insecurity about herself. And then so hearing the way she spoke about other people and talking about, oh, that person's so cute, or they're so slender, or she was always making comments like that in like contrast to herself. And so I internalized a lot of that. And I think along with my parents being more like not wanting to comment about physical beauty because, behavior is more important, that sort of, so we don't want you to think that you're too pretty because then you'll only be concerned with that, or, kind of that sort of mentality. So it was always like, there were like pretty people, and then there were like, I guess, regular people. And I did not think that I was in the pretty category. Like, I didn't think I could be pretty, really. I was just kind of like, okay.
Who's ready for some girl talk?
Welcome to Girl Talk. I'm Nicole D. Miller, author, blogger, speaker, hybrid book publisher, and your host. At Girl Talk, we are a safe space for female leaders to engage in healing and edifying conversation. This is your Me Too, empathetic corner, where we have authentic and transformative dialogue designed to uplift and connect high-achieving women like you. Are you looking for a safe space to cultivate sisterhood with other like-minded female bosses? Leave your cape at the door and join the conversation. Hi guys, and welcome back to Girl Talk, the podcast where we dig into the stories, experiences, and reflections that shape who we are as women. I'm your host, Nicole D. Miller. Today's episode, Pretty Girls versus America, takes an honest look at the pressure women face to live up to America's cultural standards of beauty. Together, we'll explore what beauty really means and how the way we define it impacts our body image, self-esteem, and the way we see ourselves. I'm joined by fellow gurus Jamia Lewis, Nikki B, Lisa Evans, Lisa Nichols, and Camille Janae. We'll talk about the messages we grew up hearing, both at home and in the media, and how they shape the way we view ourselves, from colorism to weight, from hip-hop's influence in Black culture to those complicated sibling comparisons. This conversation is about breaking down the narratives that have told us what it means to be beautiful. Most importantly, we'll talk about self-love, what it really looks like to unlearn those harmful standards and begin seeing ourselves beyond society's expectations, to begin seeing ourselves in the image of the Creator. So grab a seat and your favorite beverage and join the conversation.
Every time we do these girl talks, it's an informal format, although we kind of go in order and share our thoughts. I launch it with a question that, I've pre-scribed or I've pre-written up, but I try to go off of the vibe and, not box us in. And it's really an opportunity for those who are in, powerful leadership positions as women to discuss topics that are near and dear to our hearts and feel supported by each other and give us a safe space that we can dive into these topics. The topic that came to me, Pretty Girls versus America, was kind of like piggybacking off of some personal experiences that I've had with feeling this pressure to meet this quote unquote standard of beauty in America. And I just feel like a lot of women can relate to that. I feel like culture is always shifting and what beauty is perceived as being is always shifting too. So I just wanted to give us time to kind of dive into our personal experiences and share our thoughts on what pressures we may have received growing up, comparisons to siblings, in-home views, and how that kind of shaped us, and just sharing our own journey of self-love and self-image, because hopefully, we've all been on that journey. I feel like the women that are on this panel definitely have. And we're not perfect, but we're trying, and this could be a healing space to influence other people with your story and your journey. So I'm going to share the first question, and then our panelists, I'll give you guys in order, will respond. And even when you respond, just introduce yourself, introduce what organizations you're leading, what companies you're building, and how we can find you on social media and support you. All right. So I will say the order will be, we'll start with Camille, who is a newbie to the Girl Talk tribe, Jamia, Lisa Nichols, and then Lisa Evans. So y'all got to do good at remembering because I never remember. All right. So the first question is, what messaging did you receive at home regarding your physical appearance growing up? Were you affirmed? Were you teased? Were you compared with siblings?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. And hey, everyone, I'm Camille. I'm a beauty entrepreneur, and I'm also a branding and marketing coach. So as far as the question, I think personally, I've always kind of, I'm going to say maybe struggle with body images because I necessarily look like anybody in my family. I was always thicker, whereas my mom, my grandmother, my aunts are all slim. So my mom never made me feel any kind of way, but she definitely was more health conscious. So me as a child, I internalized it as like, oh, well, maybe, she's just doing this to be nice, but wants you to lose weight, kind of thing. Instead of just knowing my mom just was ahead of her time, so to speak, with being like conscious about what food we ate, like no processed things, no dyes and things. But my grandparents, on the other hand, everything was processed, everything was candy and sugar, and that was just not her. So I would say my mom tried to affirm me, but she probably didn't know the struggles that I had and how I felt. Be like, she made it a point for like people to not say something to me about me being like thicker. But so I guess it was a personal struggle that I should have shared with my mom, but I didn't.
So you viewed being thicker as more negative when you were younger?
Well, nobody was, younger before high school. I don't think it was the thing, no. No, because I was probably like a C cup in third grade. So no, it was not the thing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to note. So we'll see how other people's experiences are with that. But thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
My name is Jamia Lewis, and I am the host of the Thanksgivers podcast. You can find me on Instagram at the Thanksgivers podcast. I think that's what the handle is on Instagram, and I'm happy to be a part of this session of Girl Talk. And I would say, just when that question comes to mind for me, like this idea of pretty, a couple of different ways. Like one, it was something that my understanding was that it was like in conjunction with like a certain type of behavior as well. So it's like, this is what a pretty young lady would do, or this is how a pretty young lady should act. Like it wasn't, just one thing just by itself. I mean, I was definitely affirmed at home. Certainly, like just in terms of like my own personal view of myself, I think at some point, and I don't know how I feel like we all do this because I've seen this show up just with kids that I have opportunity to be around too. But we find features on ourselves that we don't like, that are not enough, whether it's not big enough, or it's too big, or it's just not what other people have, whether that's in terms of shade, size, proportion, all of that. And so I think it's really, it was a concept really easy to be off balance with and to have fear surrounding it, even if you have people affirming you, even if you have, those positive things. I think it's easy to fall into, in what ways are you not enough? Another component that was connected to that for me was hair. So like what was going on with your hair? Because if your hair wasn't right, like then you wasn't right, So this idea of sitting through, getting your hair pressed, is it straight enough? Is it neat enough? Is it all of these other is it long enough? All of those things, and so just going through varying degrees of that as I've gotten older. So even now with my hair being in locks, this is something that I never would have considered, when I was younger, because I would have had a certain connotation in my mind of like, well, no, having locks is not the move, but thankfully, and I have grown from that train of thought.
So you bring up an interesting topic of maybe women already being self-critical, like even at young ages, that we kind of look at ourselves and just start nitpicking just naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think just being around younger people or young girls, and seeing like, wait a minute, why do you think that this particular feature of yours is lacking? Like, is it that you're seeing like, and the conclusion that I came to from that was like, okay, when a child starts school and then they are around other children, then they begin to be able to have points of comparison. Like if everything is all the same at home, when they see people outside of the home that look different, than different than what they see, then that, yeah, like it's a pretty fascinating and discouraging thing to look at all at once.
And you're speaking from experience because you've taught various grades. So
Mhm.
I take your word for it.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for sharing, Jamia.
Thank you.
Lisa?
All right. I'm Lisa Nichols. I own a company called Love Your Niche, and you can find me online at lisanicholsconsulting.com or on Instagram, Facebook. Love Your Niche is my handle, so you can find me there. What I do is I'm on a mission to give people tools and tips to advocate for themselves in their careers. And so I do that through individual, career, and executive coaching, as well as working with leaders and their teams in creating a workplace that is supportive and inclusive and all of the positive things that we want our places of work to be. So that is what I do. This is a really big question for me, and I'm already like the answers, Jamia bringing up like it being attached to like a type of behavior, like how you act, that I hadn't identified that, but definitely resonate with that. And I think for me, it was really overall a negative message for a couple of reasons. I think from insecurity in my mom and her insecurity about herself, and then so hearing the way she spoke about other people and talking about, oh, that person's so cute, or they're so slender, or she was always making comments like that in like contrast to herself. And so I internalized a lot of that. And I think along with my parents being more like not wanting to comment about physical beauty because, behavior is more important, that sort of, so we don't want you to think that you're too pretty because then you'll only be concerned with that, or, kind of that sort of mentality. So it was always like something very deep for me. Even I realized when I got older, like I always thought that there were like pretty people, and then there were like, I guess, regular people. And I did not think that I was in the pretty category. Like I didn't think I could be pretty, really. I was just kind of like, okay. And, so that was pretty, influential for me for many, many years. Because I just had this perception, and just different things. Like my mom didn't really do hair, so I didn't like my hair wasn't cute. Like, I had friends with the little whatever. They had little things that their moms would do to their hair and I didn't. And so then that was hard. So I think the comparison there was, yeah, I feel like I'm saying all these negative things, but it was, the reality was growing up, I felt very negatively about my physical appearance, about my body shape, about, how like I was always a good eater. And then sometimes people would comment on that when I was like a little kid, oh, like, you don't want to eat too much or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I eat too much, so that was kind of my my growing up journey. I wasn't really compared like with siblings or anything like that. But I think that those are the major factors for me.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing. And you bring up such good topics as far as people in the home that influence us and how they can project their fears and criticism on us. And we're just like kids, so we're soaking it all up. We don't have discernment or boundaries, like we're just sponges. So that's awesome that you were able to kind of see where those root issues surface. And even the eating, like, I know for me, it was just like, you have to finish your plate, that's kind of like an opposite thing. But again, it's like you have this pressure to adhere to these standards. Maybe don't finish your plate. You're eating too much. You have other people putting their stuff on you, basically, as a kid.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know Nikki B has just joined, so I'll just update you quickly, Nikki B. I'm posing the first question, which is, what messaging did you receive at home regarding your physical appearance growing up? Were you affirmed? Were you teased? Were you compared with siblings? So Lisa Evans is next, and then you'll go after her. And when you share, you can give us your name, your business, your organizations, and how we can support you. Okay, Lisa, you're next.
Hey, everyone. I'm Lisa Evans. I currently work at Cleveland State as a marketing and communications rep. And I have a faith-based candle company, and I also do faith-based content on social media. So you can follow me on Instagram. My name is I am Lisa Evans. So I was affirmed, but also teased, compared, all those things, criticized in my home. I think I remember I think naturally we probably remember more of the negatives than the positives, but I do remember my parents saying things like, oh, you have nice eyes, but I don't think it was an overall, you're beautiful. One thing to note is I am adopted as well as my younger sister. We're both brown skinned. My dad is brown skinned as well, but my mom and my older sister are light skinned. So I had that whole dark skin struggle thing going on. And I don't look like anyone in my family. I look like my biological sister, but she looks more like our cousins. Like they have kind of similar shapes and similar, facial features. I did not look like anyone. I was super skinny all of my life, just didn't look like anyone. So I didn't feel like I saw myself in anyone. I didn't feel included. I'm the middle child. So just a whole bunch of things going on there. But I do definitely remember being compared to my siblings. Definitely, I can relate to Camille. Me and my younger sister developed larger breasts in like third or fourth grade. So my mom was like, conceal them, conceal them, conceal them. Like, don't let anybody see them, which I did. In the third or fourth grade, you don't want to, spill out of tops and everything, but that also creates a huge self-confidence, insecurity about yourself and how you look. So I definitely have always been kind of more insecure about my breast size. Even as an adult, I'm just now feeling comfortable with showing a little cleavage, and it's not like, the end of the world. So that was definitely a hard thing to work through, the whole also being super, super skinny, also being darker skinned. And this is actually an interesting question because I had to kind of, push back on my mom yesterday because I have a larger forehead, and as a child, my mom was always like, cover your forehead, always wear side part to cover your forehead. All your styles have to cover your forehead. And in the last few years, I never did a middle part. I started to try a middle part, and I'm like, I like how a middle part looks on me. I love, my forehead and how this middle part looks. So I've been wearing a middle part more recently, and I switched to a side part for protective style purposes. And I was at my mom's house yesterday, and she was like, I like that hairstyle on you. And I said, well, I kind of like a middle part better because I just like how it looks on me. And she was like, no, you have a big forehead, so you need to have a side part. And I said, well, I like my big forehead, and I like having a middle part. So that kind of has been ingrained in me, all of those different, little things, being skinny, being dark, having a big forehead, having large breasts, really took a toll on my, just the view of myself. And I feel like I'll be 30 this year. I'm just now getting to a place where I can be confident in what I look like, and also push back on family, friends, whoever has anything to say about my appearance.
Well, you definitely shared a lot. I'm like, big forehead, what are you talking about? It just shows how we see ourselves in this light, and other people are like, what? Like, I'm like, girl, yes to the middle part. Okay, do your middle part. Crazy. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. And I will piggyback on the colorism when it's my turn. Go ahead, Nikki B.
Amazing day, you all. Yes, as Nicole just said, I am in between events, and thank goodness for having a team, right? And a team that sees your vision and has the capability and the bandwidth to be able to support you positively, because sometimes we are a part of a team or a group that don't have the capacity or the availability to be able to support you positively. What Lisa Evans was just talking about, with her mom saying, no, cover your forehead. It sounds like that could have been something that it doesn't have to be exactly a forehead, but something that she was going through or went through as a young adult or a child. And she was, protecting you, but it was really projecting onto you something totally different. So kudos to you for standing up and standing in the light and no longer in the shadows, and making that war within yourself, because when we try to keep the peace outside, it's really making a war on the inside of us. So kudos to you. That just gave me life, child. Okay, wear that middle part. So yes, you all. So my name is Nikki B. You all can follow me on Instagram at hey_Nikki B, as well as I have a podcast. It's called VIP with Nikki B. And that's where we see the victory in people. But most importantly, we want you all to see the victory in yourself. And that podcast was actually created by me talking to myself, because I was talking to myself because I didn't believe in myself, right? All these other people believed in me, but it really didn't matter until Nikki, believed in herself. And a little tidbit on the name Nicole actually means victory of the people. Yes, right?
Yes.
And so walking in that just changed my perspective. It changed the way I walked. It changed the way I talk. It changed the way the yeses that I give and the no's that I give also. So to your question, Nicole, and I think this is such a good question, was I affirmed as a child, as a young woman or a girl? I was the oldest of 6. My mom biologically has 3, and my stepfather had 3 as well. So and I was still the oldest of those, right? So I had to lead by example. I know what that meant. So there was a lot on me to be perfect, right? To do things the right way. Or if I made a simple mistake, it was so hard, right? It was so hard on me because I had all of these other people looking to me to be an example for. So that was really tough. But when it comes specifically to my mom, people would tell me, like, if we were walking to the store or we were at the mall or something like that, individuals would say, oh my gosh, she's so pretty, she's so cute, this, that, and that, right? But she would say, don't tell her that too much. I don't want that to go to her head. And my mom is beautiful, right? My mom is beautiful, but I've also found out within recent years, and I say maybe about 5-7 years, that some horrible things happened to her in her young adult life. So she was really protecting me, right, from those things. But really, to me, getting older, I could not accept someone telling me that I was beautiful or pretty. It was almost like, oh, yeah, right. Because I was told for so long, or I heard, right? I heard that, no, don't believe that. No, you do this, right? But I understand that she wasn't capable. She couldn't, because some horrible things happened to her because she was pretty, right? She was beautiful. She was a different one. And I'll give a physical example of what my mom looks like. We were having this conversation the other day, and the Lord is always so perfect at timing. I was like, Mom, guess what? I'm going to be a part of a panel that's talking about pretty girls, right, in America. She said, oh my goodness, I didn't tell her. But we were talking about her growing up. She was Little Miss Euclid. She did ballet, she did jazz, she did tap, she did pageants, those things. But she was really light, so lighter than me, with long, jet black, wavy, curly hair. And I found out that a family member had abused her, and I didn't know this for quite some time until, like I said, until recent. So it all just made sense as to why, why she said the things that she said to me. But now, of course, now she says, you're my beautiful number one. She calls me number one because I was the first one. She had me when she was 16. That's a whole nother thing as well, right? So that's another part of it. So yes. So no, I was not. And I understand why now, but I didn't understand then. I didn't think my mom liked me. I did not think that she liked me because she was so hard on me, but now I definitely understand why. So yes, there we are.
Thank you so much, Nikki B, for being so transparent and even sharing your mother's story. And it's so interesting how parents or adults in our lives will think that they're protecting us or helping us, because you're not the first person that has shared that. Well, my mom forbid other people to compliment me because she didn't want me to have a big head, and it kind of like does the opposite. It causes you to have low self-esteem. Even though she thought she was doing what was right, it actually hurt you. So, but it sounds like you guys have come a long way in your relationship. And so I'm really glad that you had that time with her and that you guys have experienced that healing. So it's my turn. What messaging did I receive in the home? Interestingly enough, I was very affirmed in the home. So what I'll say is I was always told, you are fly. That is my mother's language. And it's interesting because I look so different from the women in my home. My mom and my grandma were both light-skinned and petite. I was thick and dark. But it wasn't about the color or the body type. It was just like, you're going to be fly because you're ours. Like, you're in this family and this family is fly, right? So it was about the hair, which I know Jamia touched on that. So I have fond memories of every 2 weeks going to the salon for 4 hours, okay? Because that's what it was, Black culture. Getting that perm, getting that weave. And that was really affirming to my self-esteem, which was so needed because all of the negative experiences I had were outside the home. So kids are cruel, but in the home, it was definitely like, you cute, And what I'll say is, I don't know if I want to get too heavy into this, but the messaging I started receiving was, you're the exception to the rule of being cute for being dark skinned. So I know a lot of women that have faced that. But I'm so grateful for the positive affirmation I received in the home. Now, one negative thing that did happen in the home, which I do believe was unintentional, was my grandmother's influence. She definitely started dieting a lot. And it was right around the time I hit my middle school years. And so because I was heavier, I started following her example. So for her, she'd always been petite, and being older, your metabolism slows down. She had kids, natural, normal stuff, right? But she was very critical about her body. And so because she was dieting and I did everything she did, I would do these diets with her. And so what I noticed was whenever I lost weight and was smaller, I would receive more attention in school, more attention in public. So that actually started my journey with eating disorders, which I didn't recover and heal from till early college years, right? So that was like a whole situation. So I have both everyone I've heard, both positive and negative experiences. I think parents and family who love you and are healthy, they intend to do what's right. They think they're doing what's right, but sometimes their stuff is spillage. And so with my grandmother, she never intended for me to develop these eating disorders or complexes about my weight. It was just, I did everything she did, and she had her own insecurities. So I definitely had a mixed bag, but I'm so appreciative of, especially with my mother, who could have been all like, you're not, light skinned and slim. That wasn't even her messaging. She was all about like my little chocolate drop, so she was hype about it. All right. So the next question is, what do you feel most impacts young women regarding their self-esteem, their home environment, their school environment, or media? And I want to start with Jamie on this because I know she's a teacher and she's had experience in schools as an adult. And then we'll go to Nikki B, Lisa Evans, Lisa Nichols, and then Camille.
Yeah, any one of those could take the cake depending on different circumstances. I think it's particular to the individual. So I guess how I would answer that is like what a person gives greater weight to, like whose voice is the strongest. So if in the home, like Nicole, you brought up, like, like at home, you were good. That was solid. Like you, like wasn't no doubt about it, So for you, those were the greater voices. And then getting older, you had other stuff coming at you. But I guess one of the things that comes to mind just in terms of, you said home, media, or school. I remember, and I'm sure I did not have the only school experience with this. Now, I haven't seen this as a teacher. I have not seen this, but and maybe because I don't know what's happening in the underground kid culture. I don't know what's going on, what they're talking about, really. But I'm sure that I'm not the only one that saw something like this when I was younger. Like the boys would have these rating systems for the girls, and they would have these lists, and you were either like at the top of their list, like nowhere on the list, or you was just okay, so I remember that being a very significant thing for me growing up, just because I don't recall ever really being on top of the list. Like if I was on it, I was just okay, So I remember that being a very big deal, and something that I gave a lot of weight to, and being worried about perceptions of who I was and how I was viewed. And so I definitely think media, though, in terms of today's youth, just with the prevalence of social media, like I don't know how old everybody is on this panel, but for sure, none of us came up in the time where social media is as big as it is today. Like I do know that we're past that particular point of social media's influence. And what's the word? I don't want to say I fear for them. I shudder for them. It's just, we were fortunate in that there was like the media could only come so far in terms of influencing how we thought about ourselves, what we viewed. You know, you'd see magazines at the store, people in music videos, what were the stars doing? But it just was not as prevalent, you know, where everybody has access to this tool in their hand. A picture could be posted of you and, you know, and then that's your image for a long time moving forward. So in spite of everything that I just said, I would say media definitely for today's youth, just because it's everywhere and there's no escaping it. Like everybody, you know, they have that power in their hands of the internet, and its consequences can be so dramatic in terms of the negative reach of them. So I would say it's the media nowadays, but yeah, growing up for me, I think school was a heavy part of that.
Whew. So that was the first part of Pretty Girls versus America. Did any of what the panelists shared match your experience? As women, do you think we're self-critical even at young ages? If so, where do we get this trait from? Jamia brought up a good topic of how pretty is defined by behavior. I personally never thought of beauty being determined by behavior, but after hearing several voice this, I could see why. What about the importance of hair? For me, hair was huge and really still is. You guys, I cannot leave the house without my edges being done. Jamia hit on how locks were viewed negatively growing up, but that's how I feel about my edges. My hair could be newly braided, but if my edges aren't together, there is a problem. This has been magnified when I went natural because, as you probably know, your hair just does not slick back or lay down when it's not permed. It took me forever to find some edge gel strong enough to lay down my 4C coils. If you have the same issue, I'm going to put the name of the brand I use in the show notes. Okay, that was my little tangent. But back to the discussion. Did you adopt the insecurities of the female leader in your home, whether a mom, grandparent, aunt, or other, like some of us did? Both Lisa Nichols and Nikki B were told at very young ages not to think that they were beautiful. Their mothers instilled fear in them so that their beauty wouldn't go to their heads. Unfortunately, this method caused them to develop the opposite complex to where they struggled to receive compliments or see themselves as beautiful. Another topic that stood out to me was the rating system guys can have. What trips me out about this is that the very dudes rating us look a hot mess themselves. Yet so many of our complexes as women have been determined and influenced by them. My encouragement, ladies, is for you to not allow others to influence thoughts of yourself. Cultivate your own standard. Create your own narrative. Are you guys liking what you're hearing so far? Then tune in to part 2 of this vulnerable conversation. And remember, I attract amazing, beautiful women doing amazing, beautiful things. So guess what, sis? That means you're amazing and beautiful. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. To continue the conversation, join our Girl Talk community by following @GirlTalkCLE on Instagram and Facebook.com/HTOHB, where you can join the Girl Talk Facebook group. You can follow me personally on Instagram @HTOHB, on Facebook.com/HTOHB, and at YouTube.com/@HTOHB. Feel free to reach out via email info@indiemillerpublishing.com. If you're a writer who wants to take the next steps into becoming a published author, you can book a one-on-one consultation at indiemiller.pub. Just let me know you heard about my publishing house through Girl Talk, and I'll give you a 50% discount on our one-on-one. If you'd like weekly inspirational nuggets, you can subscribe to my blog and monthly newsletter at NicoleDmiller.com, where you can learn more about me and my writings.